wholesaling in 3 different markets across the country. So we do a lot of that as well. But through my meetups and networking and things like that, I met Ray here in Morgantown, and we started getting together and figured that we should come together every week and try to share some knowledge with people and build a community. And that's probably the most rewarding part of my week is sitting here with you guys and you guys taking your time. I appreciate it. Ray?
Oh, that was so sweet, Seth. Guys, if you don't know me, Ray Glimp, over 100 doors, over 10 million in real estate deals. We got to change that to just 10 million in real estate now. So that things got a little bit more interesting. Over 10 million in real estate, several features, Google, Yahoo, 40 under 40 award winner. NAACP champion has changed, but I'm a real estate guy. I talk real estate. I live it. I breathe it every day. If you guys follow me on social media, you'll see if I'm not doing family stuff, I'm doing real estate stuff every day. So be around people that are really doing it. And I'm glad you folks are in this room. So, and thanks for being here. Let's get into it, Seth.
100%. Let's make sure that any attorneys are happy. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those the host and the guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any organization. The content provided is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and consult with appropriate professionals before making any decisions based on the information provided in this podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk. And we're happy to share that with anybody that would like it.
Awesome. Best part of the night, I want to hear from you folks today. What wins have you made in the last week to put you closer to your goals, whatever it be? Maybe it's a small goal, personal, or maybe it's something big, real estate wise. I want to hear from you folks. This is the time for you to speak. I want to hear about what goals you've accomplished this week, or even what goals you look forward to accomplishing this week as well. Feel free, guys. Go ahead and unmute yourselves if you want to share.
So I signed up for Ray's real estate course, and I'm really getting started learning on like the ins and outs of getting into deals in the States and stuff like that. So that's a big thing for me.
Welcome. Glad to have you on, Jaden. Good to have you on. We're going to work today.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I can share something, Ray. Win for me this week is I recently brought a brand new box truck, so a 26-foot box truck. So that's already in motion right now as we speak. So that's a big investment for me to even, hopefully down the line begin actually investing in rental properties and such.
Good. You're investing in your business. You got to put the money back into it. And that goes for real estate, that goes for business. You make money, you got to put it back into it if you want to grow and scale. So congratulations.
Yeah, making dollars every mile you put on that thing, man. That's good.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah. What a career. Anybody else want to share? I'll go ahead. I'll share with you guys.
Yeah, you had a good one.
Yeah, before I forget. So I actually purchased a property. Thank you, Seth. I purchased it from Seth. We purchased a triplex. I'll give you even the numbers on this. I think this thing was, how much did I pay for that, Seth? Like $93,000?
Yep.
I think $93,000. We purchased it for $93,000. The ARV we thought was about $197. All right. We just got it appraised. It came back at $293. We made an extra $100K, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So this real estate stuff, I really talk it. I really live it. We really do it. Hopefully that could be one of you. I know Stephanie's not on the call, but thank you, Stephanie, because Stephanie was one of the students. She's one of the students, and she ended up jumping into another deal. So thank you for that deal if she's listening. Anybody else? Go ahead, Seth.
Just one more thing about that too, right? Like, and I completely understand, what happened throughout it and stuff like that. But what kind of scared that away was the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually very, very recently after I put it under contract, and throughout the process when Ray got involved, there was a shooting not very far away from that building. And so there was a lot of problem as far as, this isn't going to appraise, this value's not here, this is a really bad area, stuff like that. And it just goes to prove to you that real estate, even in some of the tougher areas, can be extremely profitable.
Yeah, I would have never bought that deal, Seth. I think we both know that. I would have. That really does. It's too small for my qualifications, but I bought it to help one of the students in the mentorship out. I was like, you know what? I'll take it on. I'll if I break even on it, sure, and I'll help you out. And literally made an extra $100K on it. So,
and you partnered up with one of your contractors. You built some rapport with somebody there, right? I know that he was happy to take it down because he doesn't have the experience that you do either, right? So you're able to make a lot of connections. Yeah. He obviously was profiting as well. So it was
he tunes in. He might be tuning in tonight for all I know. So
yeah.
But yeah, just a great story. I want to share that with you guys because this is real estate. To come up with and make an extra $100K out of thin air, not something you hear every day. And so I just wanted to share that with you folks. Anybody else want to share any of their wins that they had this week?
I'll go real quick. So
Go
I met
ahead.
with I forgot the name of the brothers. Honor, I forgot the name of the brothers from the tax advisory.
Connor.
Yeah. So I met with him this week, and it went pretty good. So I'm basically moving towards my next step of forming my LLC. So it's just I'm putting the pieces together. So I completed the course, forming the LLC.
Good.
Making, I got a meeting with you in a couple of days. So I'm, just making my baby steps towards making my actual move. So every step is a progress move. So that was a big step, just understanding what I have to do for the LLC.
Good. And Connor's on here too. And I'll agree. I think everybody will agree that it's these small little baby steps that would transition into the big wins. We say that all the time. It's the small things that make the big wins. So taking small steps, small success equals big win. That's why we celebrate this. We're digging for goals. Just one little step, 1 week at a time. How can we be better? So good to hear that. Anybody else want to share their wins? Maria, I saw you unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to share or.
Yeah, sure. So win for me is I finally got the legal documents back from the lawyer, which we've been waiting on for, I don't know. I was trying to think maybe a month, maybe more than a month. So reviewing those, and then this coming week, Saturday, it's been a goal of mine to run a 5K. So traveling up to Pittsburgh to run my first 5K since I was probably like 12, 13 years old. So
congratulations. I want to see some pictures. I'm looking forward to keeping up.
yeah,
So,
thanks.
congratulations. Okay, awesome. And if you guys want to put where you're from, make sure that we build a community. So we want to make sure that you network with everybody in the community. Put where you're from, what you do, put it in a group chat. We love to hear from you folks. And if you don't follow me, follow Seth. Make sure you network with us as well. We'll follow you back. Give me a shout if I don't already. Anybody else before we move on to today's information?
Yeah, sure. I'll say one.
Go ahead.
I got some gains in the stock market today. Actually, took some profits.
Good.
One of them was actually 100% gain, so I was really happy with that.
Wow. Amazing.
Good job, man. Good job.
Good to hear that.
I'll be putting that into the real estate, of course.
Good.
Reinvested, right?
Yes.
Love to hear that. Okay.
Peter and Marilyn, you guys unmuted. Did you have something to share?
Yeah, again, it's not real estate related, but we just finally sold our pharmacy after about a year of going back and forth and going through different buyers. And we have a pharmacy and a home health care business. So we finally sold that, and that'll open up the doors to be able to spend more time learning about real estate and investing in real estate. So we're very excited about that.
Good to hear that. Congratulations. I spoke with Peter and Marilyn today too. Hopefully we can partner along and maybe share something special with you folks here as well. I'll keep everybody in the group and the community updated on that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. I think it's time we get down to business. Anybody else want to share any wins before we get down?
Yeah, it looks like everybody is. Some people are dropping some information in the chat too. So if you guys want to drop your information there in the chat, where you're at, what you do, how to contact. This is a network. We're working to build a group here, right? Of people that we can all rely on and stuff like that. So make connections in the group. It's super important.
Yep. Okay. Without further ado, let's get down to business. Breaking news. Okay. And this is a great kind of topic that ties into what we're going to be speaking today about deal killers. Home equity is a near record high. Tapping into it may be tricky due to high interest rates. Average equity per borrower increased by 28,000 to about 305,000 total. That's a lot of equity that's trapped, right? And I want everybody to think about this in a facet of, you can't really refinance, right? Unless you have to, which usually would make sense. You can't really refinance. So all that money that's stuck, it's kind of just stuck. It makes no sense for most people to refinance. I know I have a less than 3% interest rate on my house, right? I have properties with a 4%, 4.5% interest rate. Those are locked in for 30 years. It makes no sense whatsoever to refinance. I could get 4%, 5% from a T-bill, from a high yield savings account. Those are the things you want to consider as you're investing, like how hard your money is working for you. And, you know, we say this a lot during the coursework and stuff like that, the cash on cash return. How hard is your money going to be working for you? So at 2%, it's almost considered like free money. You won't find 2%. I don't know. You might get like private money, some silly person doing private money at 2%, but you will not find 2% pretty much anywhere in this market. Even I had it today, but I guess I tossed it. Even like lines of credit, their rate is about 3 to 4% on a line of credit, right? So 2%, 3%, 4s, those are tough to find nowadays. Seth, anything you want to share about this?
Yeah, I mean, it goes in to the pent up buying power and also the pent up selling power, right? And we talked, I think it was last week or the week before, one of the biggest issues, not getting political, but one of the biggest issues for people in this upcoming election in the United States has to do with housing and the affordability of it and things like that, right? So buyers need the affordability. Sellers have all this trapped money, right? These are sellers, people that have that money in there. Yeah, you could refinance, but it's also, you found it a lot in the post-COVID time where people were learning that you could go virtual like we are here today, right? But you can work a full-time job virtually now. So why have a house close to New York City when you could be in a rural community with 20 acres and have a bigger house and pay for it with cash with all your equity? And a lot of people did that and moved out of the big cities into the rural areas. There's still all this untapped market here. People can do the exact same thing. If rates do go the way that the Fed is predicting, it's going to be a perfect storm. And when we were saying that before, we were like, man, this 22% appreciation in less than a year because of everything that's happened with rates and these things, like it's a bubble, that everything's going to crash. It hasn't. Home equity is near a record high. The reason why is because home prices are at a record high.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, as you mentioned too, this is like a generational shift, right? If I know Peter Maryland just sold their business, you know, a lot of people are retiring or have retired. This is a great time. This would be a great time to get out. All that work that you've done, it's a great time to sell. For your new investors, when you look at invest, we play in a whole different game. We got to play it for the long game. We got to play it for the 20, 30-year game. All right. The days of making easy money and cash out refi, it's tough. Right? It's tough. You have to really have the experience to know how to do it. And that's why we're here. That's what we're going to talk about today, the things that kill deals. So without further ado, Seth, if you want to go to the next slide, I want y'all to write these down, take a picture, take a screenshot. Don't care what you do. But these are the top deal killers. These are the things that you want to be cautious of. You want to walk away from if you see it, if you hear about it. Remember, we analyze not off emotion, but we analyze based on numbers. It's all numbers. So these are the concepts that I want you to think about when you are dealing with new deals. Okay. And Seth and I'll kind of dig deeper into some of the ones that we think are like some of the most important and prevalent in today's market.
Yeah.
But we'll kind of glance over these. One is going to be funding. Money's not cheap right now, right? Interest rates, you can't really refinance. Banks are getting tighter, right? I mean, before it was 80%, they'll loan on 80%. You put up 20%. Some commercial deals, it might be 25. I've seen commercial deals where they want you to put down 35, even 40%. Right? So funding is a big part of it.
So a speaker we had on very early in this group, Lindy Pond. I know her very well and still follow her and stuff like that. She actually was doing another speaking event, and I was able to watch, tune into it. But she was talking about a lender that she works very closely with has just moved her or moved their seasoning period up to 12 months. It used to be 90 days seasoning, then it went to 6 months. Now it's going to 12 months. It's just showing that it's not just rates that are high that make it less affordable and stuff like that. It's also the restrictions and the guidelines that these banks and these underwriters are going under is tightening up.
And
Can you just explain what's seasoning? I just want to follow what you're saying. What's seasoning?
So seasoning is how long you've owned a property before you can refinance or do some other type of loan. So sometimes it has to be rented for that season period. Sometimes you just have to be on title for that season period. But when banks look at for like a DSCR, a debt service coverage ratio loan, or any type of refinance, they look at the seasoning period, basically how long that property's been owned.
Yeah. Next would be I want to jump to contingencies, right? And again, remember I said buy with numbers based and contingencies, and we can put well, let's just go to contingencies. I don't want to jump around because a lot of these are kind of intertwined. I want you to understand that a lot of this stuff kind of is intertwined. Contingencies, if you remember, people were bidding up properties and they were waiving contingencies, right? You do not want to be one of those people. It gets very tricky. You go buy a property with no inspection contingency. Everybody knows I'm not a fan of that. Get a sewer scope. Make sure that you are, doing all your due diligence. Some people were buying property sight unseen, 50,000 over asking, 100,000 over asking, with no contingency. They were just going to pay for it. That was it. And unfortunately, you don't hear a lot of the stories about the people who got, beat upside their head because they took that loss, right? They bought something that had a bad foundation. If they would have had an inspection, they would have caught that. Mold issues, pest issues, walking into something with contingencies is a protection for you as a buyer and as an investor, right? So, waiving those contingencies, I'm never a big fan of. I actually walked away from what was a great property because somebody else outbid me, or they actually put the same bid, but they waived the contingencies. The realtor said, "Hey, Ray, do you want to bounce back and waive your contingencies?" Absolutely not. I'll walk. Right? You're going to go in blindsided. You're going to have no idea what you're getting into, and it could cost a lot more just because, you might be anxious or the money's burning a hole in your pocket. Make sure you do your due diligence.
And also when you're dealing with off-market properties and stuff like that, as a lot of investors deal with, you're dealing directly with the seller, or if you're, I do a lot of wholesaling in my business, so I also deal directly with the buyer. It can come from both angles too, right? We just had a seller come back with, we offered them $61,000 cash with like a 35-day close or something like that. What our typical contract was, and he came back with a counter, and it was $62,000. But then it also had strike this from the contract, add this to the contract, change this date to this, and just adding these contingencies and stuff like that. And for me, that's a deal killer. Like, that's where we need to go back in. We need to renegotiate so that we have terms that are favorable for us to profit on this deal. Same thing on buyer's side. I've had buyers in the past that have said, I have to close with my attorney. I have to do the closing with that. And when you're wholesaling, it's very key that one person handles the transaction, both sides, for you. And it just was not going to work in that particular situation. That contingency right there is what killed that deal. He said he wouldn't do it. And I said, that's fine. We'll find a different buyer. And we did.
Yeah. Next, appraisals, making sure the property appraises. A bad appraisal will kill a deal. 100% bad appraisal will kill a deal. And that'll be a tool you can use to negotiate as well. Okay. Inspections, 100%. I always tell you guys, get an inspection. That could be a deal killer, but it can also be a deal saver. Okay. An inspection is, look at it as a negotiation tool for when you go to your seller or your buyer and say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. These are the things that need fixed. Will you negotiate? If not, walk away. Right? If the numbers don't make sense after it, walk away. Leave it.
Also, if anybody's looking on the flip side of things where you're going to be fixing and flipping and stuff like that, you got to take into account appraisals and inspections as you as the investor when you go to sell this property as well. Ray and I are about to start a project that we're planning on doing a flip, and I've done quite a few. And honestly, you know, when you have your budget coming in, you always go over budget and over timeline. Like it never happens the way that you planned, and that's fine once you realize what you're doing and things like that. But more importantly, contractors, especially, they'll go in there and they'll want to cut a corner here, they'll want to do something this way and that way. Understand that you may think that you're going to get top dollar for a property, but if it's not going to appraise in this market, you're definitely not going to get what you're thinking that you're going to get. And if it doesn't inspect, it can affect your buyer's funding. It can, they can use that as negotiations for you. So it's super important as the seller on flip properties to be cautious of these as well.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that on that project. When Seth and I toured the project, we're teaming up on a project. When we toured that project, we almost went through it as if we were the inspector.
Yep.
We are looking as the inspector would for the things that the inspector would catch, because the number one thing that happens when an inspector catches something, your price goes down. You're either going to fix it or they're going to negotiate on a price.
And right? I know my exit strategy for that is a flip. So my end buyer is going to be a retail buyer that's going to have retail funding, which means that they're going to have an inspection required to make that loan happen. So I know that an inspector's coming in. So I need to key on what is my inspector going to catch so that I keep him happy so the buyer doesn't get scared away and wants to pay the price that Ray and I want to get for this property.
Yep, 100%. Title issues, another issue that could pop up, a big one. Clouds on title. You could have could be in probate. Is that correct, Seth? You could have a title that's in probate. You could there could be encumbrances on a property that could be found. Liens, tax liens can be found on title. And if the person prior or who has it doesn't want to clear it up, that's a deal killer for me. We might have to walk. If you won't renegotiate, I'll walk on it. Another thing is zoning and HOAs. Now, you guys all know I'm not a fan of buying in the HOA. And to my people in Canada, I know you buy condos. Is the big thing in Canada is buying condos, and you got to pay maintenance fees. All that does is eat away at your cash flow. You really don't control the property, because guess what? All of a sudden they want maintenance fees to go up because they want to put a new roof or they want to change the color of the. You really don't control the property. So HOAs, HOA fees, restrictions. There are times that I've heard of HOAs putting a lien on a property.
100%.
Right? Just because of HOA fee, or you failed to do something and they fined you. HOA fines. Zoning issues, big one. Making sure that the property is properly zoned. And I've seen a lot. There might be a duplex, but it's a single family zone. That might not fly. Some people have put on additions, right? It might not fly. So making sure that the property is properly zoned is a big one.
It's funny. I've run across, in the past 3 months, we've run across 4 deals where the zoning isn't what actually sits there. I think we talked about it either in the Wednesday call or maybe it was one of these. We had it was a single family. It's zoned a single family, but it had 2 kitchens, and the seller selling it as he's actually the one that was asking for a bunch of contingencies as well, but he's selling it as a duplex. You got to run our numbers as a single family, and zoned as a single family. I'm working on a deal just across the border in Pennsylvania that is a 5-unit building. It's got 5 addresses. It's got 4 electric meters. I think it's got 2 or 3 water meters. I mean, it's a mess of a project, but it'll be fun. And it's 5 potential income streams there for it. But it's zoned as a triplex. And that's a sticking point for me. I told the owner that I need it zoned properly, or I need, certified letters saying that I'm able to operate it as it's currently sitting and not how it's zoned. Because when this title changes, when all these things happen, when you actually buy the deal, that's when these zoning issues, these title issues, these different things start coming back to you, right? The county may think, it doesn't matter. That house is just kind of sitting there. As soon as paperwork comes in for that house,
Yep, it's over.
Flag happens, and it's your problem then because you closed.
Mhm. And I'll share with you, I bought a 4-unit building that I had to transition into a 2-unit, right? I knew what I was getting into, but if I had underwrote that deal for a 4-unit, I'd be upside down, right? But luckily we underwrote it for a 2-unit because we knew it had zoning issues. But for somebody who was inexperienced, it would have cost them. It would have cost them big time. Inaccurate listings. And this is a big one. We'll see, 3-bedroom houses or 4-bedroom houses where really it's 1 bedroom shy and it's technically like a bonus room. The bedroom might not have the proper windows, proper egress. They might have put on an addition, right? That's not legal. They might list a 2-bedroom or a 2-bathroom as a 1.5 when it's really a 1.5. That could potentially kill a deal, right? And now it goes back to appraisal. It all circles around. The biggest one I see today too, and I don't think we commented much on this, Seth, but insurance issues, right? And insurance, especially, I know a lot of people. Here's a great thing. I love to hear it. Whenever I go out of town, out of the country too, people always like, yeah, I want to invest in Texas, in Florida. And I'm always like, why? Right? They want to invest in Miami because it's sexy. Texas is sexy. But the insurance is out the roof, right? It flood, like you got flood insurance, you got hurricane insurance, if you can even get insurance, right? A lot of people are selling their properties right now because they can't get insurance on it, right? And so for an unexperienced investor, they might buy something, oh, this is a great deal, buy it, then go to get insurance and find out insurance is 6 times what they thought it was. We've heard of insurances. I know Triple H isn't on. His insurance doubled, right? He went from $1,700 to $3,400. And he's not even in those areas. So imagine somebody that's living in Florida or Texas or California. I know not many people want to invest in California, but you can't get insurance even. So you go spend all this money and now you have this asset that becomes kind of like a liability. If you can't insure it, you're going to have to self-insure.
Flood insurance is huge. We had a deal a couple of years ago, and just a corner, it was on like a 2-acre lot. And actually the house was on the west side of this lot, and a very small corner on the northeast side of this lot was a part of a flood zone. Well, according to the insurance carriers and everybody that we talked to, because any portion of that parcel was in the flood zone, it required flood insurance, even though the residence itself didn't, have any worries of ever being, flooded or need any protections. And it actually, when we went to go sell that property as a flip, at that time with those insurance rates, it was about $180 to $200 more on the mortgage payment for our end buyer. So the affordability for that house really changed, right? Whether you're doing it as a rental and you take that on and take it out of your cash flow, or you're doing a flip, that goes to your end buyer, and that's going to affect their affordability to buy that house.
And here's the deal. People don't buy houses based on a price. They buy it based on their affordability.
100%.
The biggest key to it, right? Especially when you get into flips. Remember, people buy it based on affordability. Unless you get to the higher end stuff, once you get over like this, I'd say a 500 to 700, people buy it because they want it. But for the most part, it's the affordability of it. Ali said, why are they making these sudden changes? Why aren't they trying to support housing? Yeah, insurance is tricky. Insurance is tricky. Insurance is a company. They want profit. I mean, at the end of the day, they own profit to their shareholders. So, and I actually saw some insurance companies actually, for like some of the first time in like history, actually paid out more than they've taken in. And they're predicting it to only get worse. So what do? It's a business. At the end of the day, they're going to raise prices. It may become unaffordable for some. And a lot of times we don't hear these stories about people who, and I just saw it. I felt bad for this guy. I looked at a property about 2 months ago. The property was burned. It was a fire property. And he said, I just canceled my insurance. I had my insurance for 20 years. House was paid off. I just canceled my insurance because it had become so expensive. They raised my rate by $400 and I couldn't afford it. On a fixed income, what do you do at that point? You know, and so these are the stories that we don't really hear enough about, but it affects everybody. It affects investors. It affects mom and pop. It affects everybody. So just something that we want to bring to your attention on this call, because hopefully it'll bring you value. Finally, communication or lack thereof, I think, is the biggest deal killer. I know Maria's on. She's kind of been going through that issue. Maria, if it was me, you have really good deals, but to somebody, if the deal wasn't that good, I might walk, right? The communication has been thus far terrible. Most people might walk. You have great deals though, so you'd be silly to walk. I think I would figure it out. But for the average person, they may walk. So
It's called patience.
What'd you say?
It's called patience, and like you stated, it's taking the emotion out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Numbers
that's very true, because somebody with a lot of emotion be like, this person is avoiding me and I'm sick and tired of them and this is nonsense, this is BS, and they might have walked.
Yeah.
But your patience might be what gets you to the end of the finish line. And guess what? With your patience, if this guy has any other property, guess what he's going to do? He's going to sell it to you.
Yeah. So one thing that I think I've learned from this is taking the emotion out of it, which it has been hard. Don't get me wrong. It has been hard, but strictly looking at the numbers, and I don't know how many times I've looked at the numbers to make sure that it's right, but strictly just taking the emotion out of it and looking at your numbers to make sure it makes sense for you.
Yeah. You're going to look at your numbers until you get to the closing table. And then after that, you're going to look at your numbers even more, because now it's your money at that point. So it never stops. I look at my numbers every month, every other month. I'm looking at it to figure out how can I be better? How can I be more efficient? I get numbers from my bookkeeper. How can I be better? How can I be more efficient? Same process. It never changes. Keith said, is there a way around the insurance issue? You can become what's called self-insured, but for a lot of property, it's too expensive. It's too expensive.
A lot of lenders won't require that too. So, or will require that.
Yes.
Well, right. So you got to make sure that you're meeting your lender requirements, or else you're going to get a due on, a due clause where they call the note due.
Yeah.
But if you're paying cash for it, all that stuff, like, yeah, absolutely, you can do the self-insured item, but insurance is there for a reason. What's more important, the best way to work around the insurance is kind of know your numbers up front, do due diligence, have it in kind of cooked into where your calculator is and factor that in and make sure that the deal's still penciled.
And here's the thing about insurance. Insurance is a hedge, right? Insurance is the what if. And most of the time, for most of the stuff, it's when if, right? When will a tenant, independent, especially when you get into those bigger units, my phone, I don't sleep sometimes. I'm like, somebody might burn something down, right? I'll get a big insurance check, but somebody might burn something down. They might forget that they left the stove on, right? It's not a matter of, for me, especially at my scale, it's not a matter of when or like what if, but more like when. And I'll give you an example. I had a tenant, their dog bit somebody, right? My insurance for this building is about $500 to $600 a month. The lawsuit, or what the settlement was for about $150,000, right? My deductible was $1,000. I paid $1,000 out of that $150,000. It made a lot of sense to have insurance, So, for the most part, being like self-insured, I usually don't recommend it, depending on the value of your house. If you have like a lower value house, maybe, but it's just, you're taking on more risk. What if there's an electrical fire? You're gone. You just bought this investment and it's just taken away from you overnight. And I've seen it. And that's something that you will not I remember when I first got in business, one of my first businesses, I didn't have insurance on it. I did not sleep well at night, and I had nothing to lose really, but I still didn't sleep well. So imagine having this asset that is cash flowing you, making you money from the day you buy it, and you put that on a risk to save a couple dollars. So underwrite the deal from the first place correctly, so that way you don't have to worry about that. Keith, go ahead if you want to ask something.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my question. I didn't mean if there's any way around it as far as avoiding it. I meant like what Seth said, like, is there a way to bake in the numbers as a contingency just in case? You know what I mean? Like, do you inflate, do you put together a contingency value just in case it
Yeah,
goes up? Like, how do you
The
work
best
that
way,
out?
the best way you want to do it is, one, make sure that you buy a deal that cash flows from the beginning, right? Usually you locked into a term, a year on your insurance. Make sure you vet the area that you're investing in, and you know where you're going to be investing. So example, if I invest in Florida, I know hurricane season's coming. I might have to push higher, right? I want to make sure that I leave some wiggle room in it. I want to get several rates and several quotes, right? I work with insurance brokers. I always recommend everybody work with insurance brokers. Insurance brokers will help you get quotes from different places and kind of give you the real on, like, hey, this is the cheapest one. This one has this benefit. You know, putting those in place is a great tool. And I'll give you guys this tip and trick too. Make sure you get income loss protection, right? It'll cost you a couple bucks, but on a rental, get income loss protection. For example, if your house burns down, they might pay for the house to be rebuilt, right? But they won't pay for the income that you'll lose in the interim. And guess what? You still got to pay your mortgage. So that income protection can save you behind, right? If that house burns down, let's say it's $1 million house, it burns down, and your note is $4,000 a month. Well, it might take a year to rebuild that house. You're going to be on the hook for $4,000 a month that full year. Where if you get income protection will kick in. They usually can do $50,000. They'll send you $100,000. They'll write a check. And I've used it. I've had times where I had floods happen, income protection. All right. So that's a good tip and trick for you folks listening. That's your reward for coming today is income protection on your real estate. Huge.
I mean, your insurance broker, the person that you get your insurance from, and they need to be a part of your team, right? Just like if you're working with a realtor or you're working with a wholesaler, or however you're working with whoever your team is, right? And make sure, just like with everything else, that they understand the investment business, because there are products on the insurance side that landlords need to have. There are products that flippers need to have. Same thing with your title companies and stuff like that, right? Like when you're buying these houses, you need to make sure the title insurance or things that are there. Never buy a house without title insurance. It's the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah. And it's cheap too. What's title insurance? Like $70 or something like that?
Yeah, it's not much. And so many people say, no, I don't get that. I'm only going to own it for a year and this, that, the other. And I know people that have gotten burned for 6 figures plus for not getting title insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's those little nuances, ladies and gentlemen. There's time to save money in real estate, and these are not the shortcuts that you want to take. These messing around with these will cost you a lot of money. I've done it. It's cost me a lot of money. Most people won't share that with you. It has cost me a lot of money. All right. So don't take the shortcuts here. There's other ways to save money. Hopefully we can help you get to that point, but don't shortcut on these. Do not.
I'll tell you, in my business personally, title issues are something that we deal with all the time, because we're dealing with all different types of motivated sellers and stuff like that. And I could talk for probably 5 weeks straight on different title issues and stuff like that. But communication, we've actually hired somebody on our team. She's full-time, and she probably, she's working 40 hours a week. She could probably work 60. We could probably hire another person as a transaction coordinator for our business. That's all her job is to coordinate the transactions between what we're buying, what we're wholesaling, what we're closing on, the whole nine that's going on. And honestly, it's not as many transactions as you would think, but the constant communication that she needs to do to make sure that she's holding all the vendors and all the buyers and all the sellers and lenders and appraisers and everybody accountable to what they're saying that they're going to do, and coordinating all that stuff. Her salary is worth our weight in gold for what we put into our business.
Yeah. All right, Seth, let's just dig deeper real quick into these, and then All right. So this is one that we didn't really touch on much, but market condition. The market can change. It will change, and it will change suddenly, and you can get erased. It can be game over. As you look at a lot of these, let's say, for example, hedge funds, people raising capital, right? A lot of people raise capital, and they raise it with the intention of appreciation, right? They bought these huge buildings, $1 million buildings, raise funds, and get wiped out. Clear. Okay. We just saw, we posted it here a couple of weeks ago. A building that sold for about 130 million or something just got resold in St. Louis for 3 million. It was only worth the land, right? Somebody lost 127 million, right? That's not an easy loss. Some hedge fund, some corporation, somebody's
more than likely a bunch of somebody's, a bunch of investors.
It was somebody's 401k. That was in the IRA. It got deleted. Right now, there was just a building that just New York City originally bought for 90 million and is now for sale for 30 million. Right? Imagine a haircut somebody's taking. Right? Imagine the people who won't be made whole. So you have to plan for market conditions. That's why I always tell you guys, if you buy with cash flow in mind. Appreciation is very important. If you could buy something that has appreciation and some cash flow, great, but it has to have cash flow. If you buy something that's negatively cash flowing, you have to have a plan to immediately get it to cash flow.
And that's the key, is having those multiple strategies and multiple plans, those contingencies and stuff like that in your plan, right? Like, I know a lot of people, especially when Airbnb really like shot into mainstream and stuff like that, people were buying based on income projections for a short-term rental.
Can't do that.
And I know some people that were in my local market when that was happening that have absolutely lost themselves because the Airbnb market isn't as hot as it is now, but they owe extremely too much money to do anywhere near a positive cash flow on a long-term rental.
Here's the thing. Most of the people I spoke to Canada when I was out there a couple years ago, they were buying with appreciation in mind. Right? Rates were low. Okay, we'll be better. Don't really care about cash flow. Now what happens? You're out the deal. Right? You're negative. If you were barely cash flowing in, interest rates go up. Now you double the payment. You're spending the money you could be fueling for your future. You're spending that on somebody else's rent to keep them in the house just to say I own a property. And real estate is an investment tool. It should make you money. I'm a believer. It should always make you money. So be cautious of the market conditions. Right now, we should see, I think I'm a predictor right now, we should see some loosening. The market is kind of, I think we're at the peak right now. It'll start to trickle down. We just saw some other countries started to cut, which is good. I know the Fed, our Fed, United States Fed, they're not going to be cutting this time. Probably there's some pressure on them to start cutting. But the cuts will be very small, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be very small. It'll be a quarter point. That will not change your life. It won't. Half a point. It will not change your life. You got to remember, I know here they went up 3/4 of a point every Fed meeting, which was like every 3 months. They were going up 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. A quarter of a point is not going to change much. So right now, I still believe when the market goes down or when they start to lower rates, prices will go up. I mean, we're just waiting on it at this point for prices to go up. So if you can buy, if you can afford to buy, if you can afford to get in, still believe it's one of the best times to do so. Next slide, Seth. Inspections. We mentioned this. Number one deal killer, right? Structural issues, huge. Don't waive your contingency on an inspection. Do not. Mold, outdated electrical systems, outdated HVAC systems, outdated water. Water can be a big one, actually. Plumbing systems, huge one. And as I told you guys, I tried to cheat. I tried to take a cheat code to it. And I was like, oh man, I'll save, it's a nice building, 8-unit building. I'll save a couple $100 by not doing a sewer inspection. $20,000 later, right? $20,000 later, I could have saved myself if I would have did that work, right? So me trying to save 400, 500 cost me 20 grand. Don't make the mistake. Don't take the shortcut. That'll give you more motivation to negotiate on your deal. If I would have known that was there, probably would have knocked up another 5, 10K. It's a big problem. So you know, you want to go on with the mindset of knowing that things are there. So do not waive the inspection. Termite damage. I just saw a property. I was on TikTok and I watched, there was this bug guy and he goes into people's houses and he's like, yeah, how long ago did you buy this? And everybody, it seems to be, oh, we bought this during COVID. We paid the over asking price. They waived the contingency. They waived their inspection. House full of termites. Full of termites. Some beyond repair. Right? You spent some people their life savings to buy this home. What do you do? And so do not waive the inspection. Okay. Next slide, Seth. Seth, you want to talk about title issues? Seth kind of a specialist on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I could probably talk for 5 weeks in a row on different title issues and bring in different people that have had horror stories and stuff like that. I mean, common things that you see there is, you know, unpaid taxes, liens, disputes over property boundaries. That's huge. Property boundaries, zoning, if it hasn't been surveyed recently, a buddy of mine in Petersburg, Virginia, bought a house, it hadn't been surveyed in over 40 years. And his neighbor actually built on a property since that survey had happened. Mm-hmm. And a quarter of his neighbor's house was actually infringing on the property. And there was a huge dispute about that. There was a lot of title issues that went with that. When he went to go sell that property, because he basically, when he went to go sell his property, he was technically selling a quarter of that other person's house because the survey wasn't done correctly and stuff like that. It was no fault of his own, but it's a huge problem. HOA is another thing that Ray had mentioned, and that's something that I've seen many, many times. It's one of those bills that get lost in the mail and you don't really think about it because it's not a normal reoccurring bill and things like that. And I've seen HOA fees $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for different fines and stuff like that, because a lot of the houses that I buy are vacant, distressed properties. They're going to violate some HOA restrictions, and they're happy to keep racking those fees up and just put a lien on that property, and that has to be settled before it can change hands. I've seen a $250,000 IRS lien on a house that's worth $60,000. That house just can't be sold. The only way that house can change ownership is if that lien's paid in full. Well, his house is only worth $60,000. I can't buy that house. They killed the deal completely. Mm-hmm. That same deal, actually, he owned it with a friend of his because he was a single guy. He never got married or anything like that. And he wanted to make it, he thought he was making it easy to transfer when he died and stuff like that, to his best friend. Have a will, first and foremost, but most people don't. Anyway, so his friend had 2 collections on his credit for credit cards. And it had been sold off 7 different times to different collection agencies as all these collection accounts happened. But this was all right when COVID first started. Everything was shutting down. We were trying to find a payoff for this one lien. I ended up having to do a search on the LLC that owned the collection amount on the title when they pulled their title report. I had to find that guy. Actually found that guy in Connecticut at his home to find out what the payoff for this lien was so that we could pay this off to try to buy this property, and ended up not being able to buy it because of the IRS lien. But it gets super, super complicated. The probate is probably one of the ones that is the most common ones that will drag deals out and kill deals. And it comes from people not having wills and somebody passing away. As soon as somebody passes away and they don't have a will, but they own real estate, then it's split up between heirs, and it's not defined by an actual document, by an actual will. So they have to go through a list of heirs process. And sometimes those heirs die. So Johnny's brother might have gotten 50% of this property. Then Johnny's brother died, but he had 3 kids. Well, they all get 33% of Johnny's 50%. And then one of them have died, right? And so finding out where all these people are, locating these people. We've located people in jail that have interest in properties that we've had to buy. We've actually gone to jail to get documents signed from people so that we can buy properties and sell properties. It's very interesting. The title issues, if you, especially working with motivated sellers and starting to work with off-market properties, you're going to run into them all the time. And that's why I say always buy title insurance, because we bought properties, got title insurance, so they've done their title search and found everything clear. Because when you buy, you want a free and clear title, no liens, no judgments or anything on that title or on that deed. And that's what that insurance is for, saying that we've done our due diligence. Well, they go back 100 years when they do these searches. So when we go to sell that property, something else popped up. Our title insurance saved us from that. But there's so many things that can happen. It's almost inevitable that something isn't going to get caught. So,
well, yeah, I want to share this too. We tell you guys this stuff not to scare you, but as a tool you can use, right? These are all good negotiation tools. If you know this stuff and you're a savvy investor, or at least come off as a savvy investor, you might save the deal and be able to save some money. Some of these issues could be solved with money. A lot of these issues could be solved with money. Maybe it becomes a credit on a deal, right? Maybe you buy the deal cheaper and you put the money on the backside, you know, or maybe the person at least does the work for you. So that way you're not blindsided and have to do this work. That's all we want to do, is just equip you with the most information that you could have to further better your investment journey.
I'll say, especially on the wholesale side, because that's where a lot of my business is with my partners and stuff like that, and where the volume comes from in my business. On that side, the ones with the title issues, the ones that are muddy deals and stuff like that, those are my most profitable deals. And it's honestly, it's because other investors get scared away. Other investors don't understand what the process is, or don't have a team in place that can solve those issues. Most of these title issues can be solved, like Ray said. And sometimes it takes money, sometimes it takes something a little bit more creative, but almost all of them can be solved. Having somebody on the team that knows what's going on, it's a lot of it's over the top of my head, but I have professionals on my team that fix this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide, Seth.
That's it, sir.
Cool. So without further ado, if you guys aren't part of the winner's circle, the inner circle, we'll be diving deeper into this tomorrow. Seth, I think we want to talk about something else too, but we'll dive deeper into this tomorrow. If you're not part of it, hope to see you there. To everybody else, you should have the link. We'll see you there tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will be recorded. So if you're not able to be there, we can get you the recording. It'll be posted on the website. We're going to talk deeper about deal killers. Hopefully we can hear from some of you folks. Bring us some of your deals. Hopefully we can help you analyze it. Or if you have questions about the market, where you think the market's going, or you want to invest in a particular market, hopefully we can answer those questions in our group call as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. Like, deal killers sounds bad, right? Most of this is solvable though, right? And that's we can talk a lot more about that on Wednesday. Find out what's killing your guys' deal and how we can find a creative way to solve that problem.
They say cash flow solves most problems, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. All right. Next Tuesday, we got a very special guest, my guy, Keelan George. I met him in Phoenix, I believe, or Texas, and actually connected with him immediately. He is a credit like guru of some sort. He helps people get lines of credit, business lines of credit, so you can get your properties with 0% down. I've done this, right? And I've worked with people who have, I just saw a post, somebody just got $1.5 million line of credit, right? So that could be used to fund your first deal, right? He's going to be talking about next Tuesday, 0% business credit for a BRRRR and Airbnb as well. Keelan is an investor, so it's always great to have other fellow investors, people who are actually doing it in the world. But he is a great credit resource for you folks as well to kind of talk to, fill out, see what you can learn from him, and hopefully sharpen the tools in your shed. Also, if you're not, make sure you join the free Facebook group. We kind of mention everything that's going on. Talk about deals, deal killers as well. We want to hear your wins. Love to hear from you. Let's see. Ali asked before we go, is 0% down possible for cross-border investors or strictly U.S. residents? Honestly, you could do 0% anywhere. You don't need just lines of credit. Let's just say you got a line of credit in Canada. Sure, you can use that and fund your deal, but let's just say you got seller finance deal with 0% in. It's possible. It's not just the things here's the thing, the things we talk about span beyond the US, right? The strategies we give you work anywhere in the world. I'm pretty sure I could buy something in Africa if I wanted to with seller finance. I could buy something in Europe or Asia with seller finance. I wouldn't buy anything in China just because they could take it from you. I don't think you can really buy anything in China.
I know a guy from a mastermind that I've been a part of for about 2 or 3 years now. He was in the Tampa Bay area in Florida, and he was doing investments. He was wholesaling and flipping and was building up a portfolio. He got to the point where his cash flow from his portfolio was more than what he really needed and stuff like that. Decided to relocate his entire family to Portugal, and he still runs his business, his portfolio business, and still buys and sells properties from Portugal. He does creative finance. He does all the things that we talk about.
I want to let y'all know, I swear, I just had this conversation yesterday. Somebody asked me, like, Ray, would you live where you live now? I'm like, man, I got a great house. I love where I live. But if I moved, I would move to Thailand. I could operate solely in Thailand, hire a property manager, and be clear free for the rest of my life at this point in my career. Right? I don't want to yet, but it's something I consider. And that's the beauty of real estate. You can be where you want to be, still own your properties and the cash flow, pay for your lifestyle. So it's a beautiful game. So somebody said Bora Bora. Yeah, I love that. I need to go. But yeah, you can be wherever you're at making money. You can do 0% down. The strategies we give you apply anywhere through the US. So again, make sure you're on a Wednesday call. Ali, I think Ali signed up for the Wednesday call. So Ali, I'm excited to see you on. I think it'll be your first one as well. So we'll dive deeper on a Wednesday call. Seth, take us off. And that's with my guy, Robert.
Yeah, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's very true in real estate. What you don't know can kill the deal. It's all about doing due diligence, right? Inspections, right? All the things that we were talking about. If you haven't done your due diligence, those things will pop up and they will kill your deal.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure. We will see you all tomorrow. Most of you will see you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Y'all have a good one.
Thanks. Have a good day.